Chapter 4 Agron and the Outsiders. The twin suns are rising over the horizon as the sunlight shone upon Agron's face. When Tatsu finally woke up, she looked Agron awake as she gleefully said, "Wake up, Buttercup. Today's the first day of school." Agron then moans, "Morning already. I was just having this awesome dream about me and this cute Zolshuren girl." Tatsu then grinned. "Maybe you might meet some cute Zolshuren girls at school today. Just saying." Agron then rubs his eyes. "I'd prefer if they were dragonborn like myself. Though beautiful, Zolshuren chicks aren't all that loyal or pious. They're super stuck up and have more boyfriends than I can count." "Maybe you're not into Zolshuren girls, but what about American girls?" "No. Although I've never seen one before. I prefer if she was the same species as me and not just what I can imagine is on the other side of the wall. Even if that's the case, I'm just trying to expand your options. And I just wish I had more options in life. If I were to ever get drafted into the Zolshuren Army or Space Force, I'm going to steal a starfighter and get as far away from this planet as I can." Tatsu then looked at Agron with a sad, scaly face and asks, "Does that mean you'll leave without me?" "Of course not. I'll never leave without you. For as long as we've known each other, you've always been like a little sister to me, and I couldn't bear the thought of separating from you." Tatsu then hugs Agron and rests her head on his shoulder as she said, "And I'd never leave your side as long as I live." Tatsu's mother then calls for her and Agron to come to the kitchen where her mother prepared them breakfast and lunches. Then they went to school where Agron would begrudgingly say the Zolshuren Pledge of Allegiance and morning prayer in Zolshuren rather than his native language. Then he would only feel a sickening sensation as a group of Zolshuren anthropologists were intensely observing the behavior of all his dragonborn classmates, with the Zolshuren army also being present. Later, Agron began his magic practice with Tatsu and met a metal dragon foreign exchange student studying abroad by the name of Excalibur. At lunch, Excalibur awkwardly sat down with Agron and Tatsu and spoke with a thick American accent. "Howdy, mind if I take a seat here?" Agron then moved over for Excalibur and said, "Sure thing. So, you've seen what's on the other side of the border wall?" Excalibur then reclines, taking a bite out of his slice of pizza, and says, "Of course. What do you want to know about it?" Agron then rests his chin on his hand and says, "Just what it's like over there. My companion Tatsu and I have always wondered what's on the other side, and just curious if you know if it's better than here." "Better than here? I don't know. Living here on the Zolshuren side is almost identical to living on the American side. Does that mean the American side is just as terrible as here?" Excalibur then looked at Agron, confused expression, and asked, "Really? It's terrible here?" "To be honest, I feel better having these Zolshuren army men around here. It's very unlikely fellow Americans would even consider attacking this place, out of all places. It holds no strategic advantage and there's nothing to gain by attacking this region. But doesn't having these Zolshuren soldiers here make you feel uncomfortable, like your home country is just being occupied and exploited?" "Not at all. They don't seem to bother me, and it's nice knowing they're pitched against the rebel savages who would want nothing but to destroy the peace both Zolshurens and Americans have brought to this planet." "Peace? I don't know, man. All I've seen lately is just battle after battle between us and the Americans, and it's gotten to the point where now we're placing bets on who gets drafted next. Well, if I ever got drafted, it'd be a real shame to have to kill Zolshurens when I'm already starting to like them. I guess that's why they don't let you see the face of the enemy before being sent into battle. Actually, why are we even fighting this stupid war anyway? Neither of us is winning, and if we used our weapons of mass destruction, there wouldn't be any life left on this planet. It's not even like we're all that different to begin with. Then why even have this damn war in the first place? Heck, I don't know. But if I knew how to stop it, I would. But I'm afraid the only thing that's going to stop it at this point is if either the home planet of the Zolshurens or Americans is destroyed. Unfortunately for Zolshurens, I've been hearing conspiracy theories of a secret superweapon that can glass entire planets. And the sad part about this crackpot conspiracy theory is that it might actually be true. Anyway, it was nice to meet you. You too, Excalibur. Excalibur then returns to class as Tatsu says to Agron, "He seems nice. Say, you want to invite him to the grand opening of the Apollyon Resort later today? It'd be nice to invite the new kid around here." Agron then looked at Tatsu with a slight smile and said, "I definitely will." After class, Agron and Tatsu met up with Excalibur and headed to the Apollyon Resort. Meanwhile, Apollyon and his half-sister Artemis were hanging out on their starship, waiting in orbit for their turn to land on the dragonborn planet of Draksus due to Zalshuran Space Force blockades. With a sour expression on her face, Artemis said to her half-brother, "You know I'm not supposed to go to the land of the Zalshurans, so why'd you bring me to a place occupied by the Zalshuran military out of all people?" Apollyon simply reclined in his chair while sipping a can of Diet Beppis and said, "I thought you needed a night outside your queendom and some quality time with your good brother from another mother." Artemis then put her hands on her hips and glared at her half-brother and said, "My mother's gonna kill me if she finds out I was hanging out with you in Zalshura out of all places." "She doesn't need to know. And if we have any problems with some Zalshuran army men, your mother will bail you out. And if she doesn't, it's your fault. And knowing how your people have treated my queendom throughout the years only makes me doubt what little faith I have in them even more. Yeah, despite Zalshura almost always being on the right side of every conflict your queendom started." Artemis's face then steams white and turns her back to her half-brother and doesn't say anything more as her half-brother says, "Come on, you know you love me." All Artemis said in response was a low growl as a silver magical energy field surrounded her and her teeth became wolf's teeth. Then Apollyon returned to piloting his starship and received the signal to land on Draksus shortly after he headed off the opening ceremony of the Apollyon Resort as the ribbon was being cut. However, half-sister didn't stick close by but stayed at a distance from her half-brother as the party inside began with some classic Zalshuran jazz. While inside, Excalibur noticed Agron looking at Artemis in her pretty blue and white dress and said, "I see you eyeing that girl over there. Go talk to her, man," as he pushed Agron and caused him to stumble into Artemis while rebalancing himself. But before he could apologize, Artemis grabbed him and gently asked, "Are you all right?" Agron then looked at Artemis's pretty face with a blank expression as she asked him, "Is that a yes?" Agron then said to Artemis with an embarrassed expression, "I'm all right." Enjoying the party, as Excalibur was giving him a thumbs up for finally talking to a girl. Artemis then looked at Agron and sighs, "I suppose so. Although I'd like to get away from all this noise. Say, why don't we go hang out in the executive lounge?" Artemis then takes Agron to the executive lounge as they sit together on the couch sipping hot tea and eating apple bread. Then Artemis asked Agron, "Have you met my brother yet, seeing that he is at this party?" Agron then looked at Artemis and replied, "I don't believe I have. What does he look like?" "He's the movie star that starred in Empire of the Moon 2089 remake as President Mackenzie. I can't believe you've never heard of him." "Well, I don't watch Zalshuran movies, so I wouldn't know." "Me neither. I just watched the 2089 version because my brother was in it. Otherwise, I would have much rather watched the original black and white version from 1962 in the original Ceylonese language. It's really a shame how much the Zalshuran dub completely butchers it and censors much of the original content. The Zalshuran dub is in fact so awful that it turns the heartbreaking story about the Ceylonese people during the war to end all wars into a damn comedy about Zolshuran exploits. Agron then gives a gentle expression. I know how that is. From the likes of it, you don't seem Zolshuran. Where are you from anyway? Artemis then smiled. I'm from the Lunar Kingdom, if you couldn't already tell by my Selenese accent. Are you from this planet? I guess you could say that. By the way, I've always liked watching your Queendom's anime. My favorites include Rainbow Mountain Heavy D Racing, A Nymph's Tale, and Caroline High Noon. Those are actually really good choices. And I've actually been to the places those animes are based on. Rainbow Mountain Pass, Euphisia, and Caroline are all real places in the Lunar Kingdom. It was nice meeting you, by the way. See ya. Artemis then patted Agron on the shoulder as she returned to the dance hall. As she went out, Agron met her brother Apollyon. Apollyon then said to Agron, Well, if it is the dragon boy who's been talking to my sister this past hour, how are you doing? Then as Agron saw that Apollyon was a Zolshuran, he glared at him and said, Well, if it isn't Apollyon. Apollyon then poses dramatically and monologues. Lost for words art thou? I can't blame thee. It's not every day a dragonborn meets the most popular movie star throughout Zolshura. Besides, this party is quite the revel. And what's there not to love about Zolshuran culture and festivities? Agron then interrupts Apollyon and says, A lot not to love, actually. Apollyon then put his hand on his hips and leans back while asking, Like what, darling? Like the way your kind took our land and now rule over us and forced us to abandon our way of life? Plus, I met a nice Selenese girl here who doesn't take too kindly to your culture either. Then they are delusional, my dear. Are you blind to how much Zolshura has increased your quality of life? Do you not remember the oppression you suffered under your monarchs that forced you into subjection of them and not the common good of all people? I most definitely am not blind to oppression, especially the kind your people provide. It makes you so arrogant to think that your kind is better than ours. We simply are. And it's our goodwill towards your kind to enlighten you. You simply haven't accepted our enlightenment, as your peers have. And that is why you suffer the oppression of your own potential. Your species isn't so stupid, so much as being quite stubborn. Tell me, do you remember what your world was like before us Zolshurans came and liberated it? Agron's face then steams red as he barks, It was better before your kind came here. Apollyon then put his hand on the side of his revolver, anticipating a fight, and says, No, it wasn't. You were living in the Middle Ages, killing each other, all for the sake of your pathetic kings and queens' political power. You were nothing to them. But to us, you are somebody. Be grateful another kingdom didn't conquer you first. Agron was then about to punch Apollyon in the face with a flaming fist, but he held back his anger as he left the room, only to think of angry thoughts about his encounter with Apollyon for the rest of the night.